the biggest indicator that I see that someone's going to kill it and be successful isn't even necessarily like their product or looking at their ad account. Usually it's like someone who understands what they like, their strengths and weaknesses, or what they do and don't know.
Guys, we've got our salespeople on the line, waiting to be admitted to the Zoom room. And what's so special about this?
They don't even know.
They don't even know they're being a part of our vlog. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to admit them to the Zoom room. We're going to surprise them, spring a conversation with them on, just some of the common challenges that e-commerce store owners are having. Because they're speaking to people every single day, several people every single day, diving into their issues, helping them strategize how to blow past that. So I'm going to admit them to the room. We're going to introduce these fellers, and we'll see if they're game. Gentlemen.
Oh, Patrick on his iPhone.
I know, dude.
How you guys doing?
Are you guys
today?
sitting on both sides of it like this? Like Dan's here, you're here.
Yeah, so we got a little secret to let you guys in on. You're on the vlog.
We're doing a vlog.
We wanted to catch you guys off guard, see how you guys handle the pressure. But what we want to do, guys, is
5 minutes.
Introduce both you guys, 5 minutes. You guys talk to thousands of people, and we just kind of want to hear from you guys, what are some of the common issues that online store owners are having? Because if someone can figure out the common issues, they can avoid it. You know what I mean? But there's all those common things that we see over and over and over again. So we just want to invite you guys into that conversation and give you the opportunity to share kind of, just some of the biggest, most common issues that we see, whether that's in big ad accounts, people just getting started or whatever. So if it's cool, Matthew, your video's up right now. Why don't you just introduce yourself real quick and tell us a little bit about how you engage with our prospects?
Sure. Yeah. My name's Matthew. And I would say as far as engaging, like we have a pretty straightforward approach that's filled with a ton of integrity and is dialed in towards making sure that what somebody's dealing with, the issues they're having with their Facebook ads, Instagram ads, things like that, is something we can actually provide them a service towards and help them. So no call is ever done where we think, 100% we can until we've actually done our due diligence and have gone through the process with them, checked out the ad account if they have one, and can ultimately pass them through and have somebody like Patrick who does second calls tell them 100% we can help you with what you guys are dealing with. So.
Sweet. I love it. And then Patrick, why don't you just introduce yourself and kind of tell about the process, once they're speaking with you.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm Patrick, head of business development. I'm currently at Black Square because my internet's not working very well. So, basically like my process, once we have talked to someone initially, we'll get analyst access to their ad account, and I pretty much dive in and kind of see what exactly is going on, like what's the issue. And there's, Rob, there's a ton of different things that like in terms of, I don't know, what can derail people or give them, let them have a bad experience, I guess, diving with Facebook. I feel like, Facebook it's not rocket science, but I think it's complicated enough with enough like kind of pitfalls that I see some like pretty common mistakes. Very often, a lot of them are based around like initial like campaign objectives, driving traffic and getting the right type of people there. I think in general though, like most companies that I look at are getting in front of their target audience. Like Facebook makes it pretty easy, even if you don't know what you're doing, to like use some pretty advanced tools and get in front of the right people. Usually it's more so like people just aren't getting enough touch points. Like people, once they drive traffic or someone sees them, people click on ads all the time of stuff that they totally like, that they would totally purchase. It's just if they don't pull out their wallet right then and there, Like people tend to kind of
Yeah.
forget about it and move on. So at least from my perspective, you know, we tend to be pretty practical about it and looking at, okay, what's your bottlenecks? Like, where are you trying to get to? And, you know, what's stopping you from getting there now? We're focused on a little tiny sliver of that, which is like the customer acquisition. And there's all the managing of business and inventory and all the other things that like make a business, you know, kind of difficult at the same time. But yeah, and with that initial piece of acquisition, I think that's kind of like the biggest thing from my perspective is like, if you're not staying top of mind for people, if you're not like all over their feeds once they get there, you're not giving yourself like the greatest chance to, you know, get that sale, which ultimately like that's what matters. Like, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something you say all the time, you know, because people can get so lost in the tools, right? They make it pretty easy to start doing some pretty advanced things. But I love when you kind of just summarize it, you know, with someone, and I would say this is true regardless of the level that they're at, whether they're just starting out or whether they're spending, you know, $3,000-$4,000 a day. It's like you still got to put yourself in a realistic chance to succeed every single day. And so regardless of what you're doing with the tools, regardless of how crazy segmented your audiences are, if you're not getting the touch points, people won't purchase because it just takes that many. You know, it takes 7, 8, you know, they're even saying 9, 10, 11 touch points these days to get somebody to purchase. And so it seems like one of the common issues we see, if I can just kind of reflect back at you,
Sure.
is that people can kind of build, you know, somewhat of a funnel, but they're just lacking on the amount of touch points. Would you say that's pretty true? And is it true that that's like not exclusive to like a big business or a small business?
Yeah. I mean, I think in general, that's usually like the main issue that I'll see in ad accounts. I mean, obviously we're taking it like a few steps farther and really diving into like segmenting individual steps, kind of like looking at where customers are kind of in their journey and trying to tailor our ad creative, like messaging basically around that. But I mean, I think like, you know, even when it comes to touch points, like once you get like the right person to your site, they click on it, you know, even if they have every intention of buying, like we see people that will click on ads, they'll go to it, they'll send it to their friends, like, hey, check this out, totally plan on buying it. And then just they end up kind of like forgetting about it, you know? And I think that it needs to be like frequent and immediate when you get back in front of someone. Like I'm a big fan of like same day, that person getting exactly what they clicked on in their news feed. And then like, you know, we're really good at kind of sequencing them out, but really with kind of the framework in it that you don't have to like sell your soul to run advertising. What you're trying to do is like get past that trust factor. Like pretty much every consumer out there, I feel like at some point has like clicked on an ad, saw something that they thought they liked, bought it, and then were like filled with deep regret right afterwards because they realized it's like shipping from China and won't be there for 40 days and it's junk. You know, like that drop shipping isn't the only bad thing out there, and not all drop shippers are bad. Some of them are great. But I feel like everyone there's always like this little bit of a trust factor there when it comes to like buying something online from a random site. And I feel like the two ways to like get past that is like, number one, people like buying from people. So show who you are, have like a decent presence, like let it be if you're passionate about your business, you're passionate about like giving people opportunities around you, show that on your website so people can connect with you. Video is an awesome way to do that. And then from there, people get to your site, and then just stay top of mind. Everything that you're doing from the point that they like get to your site is all based around like building trust. It's not based around just pushing product, or like the worst is just like throwing discounts at people until they purchase. Like that throwing a discount at someone has nothing to do with the actual like reason why they didn't purchase in the first place.
Right, because the extreme end of that is like all the way down at the totem pole where people have free products plus shipping. You know what I mean? They took it all the way down. So that's like the extreme example, just discount after discount. And it cheapens the brand, cheapens the experience, and lowers the credibility and trust somebody has with you know, a brand they've never heard about on the internet. So Patrick, you're speaking with people that have already spoken with Matthew. They're already somewhat in a position where it's like, hey, they at least have a foundation here. There's potential they can do something. So your view is a little bit, you know, you're speaking with a percentage of total e-commerce owners. So what I want to do is rewind even a few steps back from that and ask you, Matthew, what are some of the things that you identify as problems or issues to where you wouldn't even necessarily, get them set up with an audit with Patrick and move them forward? Like, is that normally a mindset thing when they're just not at all in a position to move forward? And maybe if we can kind of identify that and vocalize that, it might help somebody avoid, a bad mindset around growth or positioning or something. But what are some of the things that you're looking at in terms of like our first touch point with an e-commerce business that would either say, yes, let's keep moving, let's keep exploring this, or is there a common theme of you saying like, no, you got to go look at this first?
Yeah, great question. So I think the big thing for individuals coming on a phone call with our agency, any agency in general, is going to be just being open-minded to the process, and being aware that there could be, it could happen that maybe we can't help, but they need to be open to it and just going through the process and allowing us to dig into data, ask questions, and really find out where they actually are with the business. And I've used the word many times, but just being open to the process, answering questions, allowing us to dig deep enough to really see where they're at currently and where they want to go with the business is going to be a big thing for us to identify. And we see people that come in that, have large businesses doing a couple $100,000 a month. We see businesses that are coming through that are just starting out. Some are at, the 30, 40, 50K range. But no matter what, if it's big, medium, small, it really comes down to looking at the data and seeing if it's something that we really feel our team is going to be ready to take on and scale.
Cool, man. Perfect. And then looping back to you, Patrick, unless you had something else to say, I had another thought. Sounded like you're about to say something, but.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So I know another thing that you've seen before and you vocalized to our team is like this idea that people are like, in terms of messaging, positioning, how they're portraying themselves on the website. I feel like you've seen a little bit of a pitfall where there's these people who have awesome stories and they're not sharing it for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's enough of a springboard for you to talk about what you were describing the other day in our team meeting. But I just feel like there's whether it's fear of looking like they're a small company or what, but there's a certain amount of like, they're shooting themselves in the foot because they're not actually showing up as a person. They're trying to be something different, and that just creates awkwardness.
Yeah. I mean, I remember even like when we started our business, like initially when we were, I was calling from an Alaska number and it was like the three of us in this little teeny room, and people would be like, either they think it was awesome that we're from Alaska or like, how the heck can we know anything about advertising? But there was like this pressure even for us back then to like have a very professional looking website. Very like, I mean, I remember just like my email correspondence. If I look back at my emails from like 4 or 5 years ago, just like so proper and like nice to people. And like, it's not really how people talk. But anyways, getting outside of emails for like selling on your site, I feel like I've seen again this like interesting dynamic where a lot of people who are like the real deal that are really passionate about it, especially this is very common. I feel like when people have done like brick and mortar stores already, or they're just like someone who actually cares, has a great cause that their business is for, or maybe they're just like really passionate about giving people opportunities around them, or there's so many reasons why people have businesses, but let's lump all those people, like the good-hearted people, let's say they're like the real deal. They tend to be the worst at self-promoting themselves online because that's not what their business is. Like they care about all the other things and like they tend to be like not super comfortable with that, which I totally understand. On the flip side of that, if you had a terrible product and all you were there to do was like make as much money as possible, you didn't care about like lifetime value, you're just trying to get sales, your entire business would be self-promotion and looking good online. So that's a dynamic that's in there that like we kind of have to like coach people through a lot, I think, of just kind of like easing up and like it's okay to let people kind of know who you are. I think there's that part of it. And then the other side of it too is like for some reason, I think a lot of times, well, like I know the reason actually. It's just when you're going online, there's just like this, almost like this pressure to like pretend like you're like this big soulless company that you're not. I felt that with like us before. And certainly for like people starting off businesses, like I think in people's mind adds legitimacy. And really what like in reality, every time that you're like open and like kind of like real with people, or like show that you're like, people love buying from people love supporting small businesses, like people love that stuff. And the more that you can kind of show that, I think for most small businesses, that's like their biggest attribute. And like I'm a big believer in like not hiding that, and like making it like very evident. When someone gets to your site, they just have a second, you want to like hook them in with products that are solid, and like everything's kind of based around that to some degree. But I think if you're a sole business owner, or like a small company, like show it like right away.
Yeah, 100%. And it's it is a huge temptation. Like you said, we did it ourselves all the time. And I don't know what exactly the pressure is, but it's definitely there. Like you said, like, I think that's a great way to put it, is like they're putting out their best impression of like a soulless company, because that's what they've seen as being like successful. But then you're shooting yourself in the foot because you're not telling your story. You're not creating that person-to-person connection. And then it just looks like, you're some random fake site selling crappy products. But if you add personal elements to it, that's really what changes it. When you add the story, when you add the full narrative of who you are as a brand, it really, really helps. So just
Totally.
kind of to recap kind of some of the things we talked about in terms of common issues. One thing is, using the wrong objective when you're launching your campaigns. A lot of people go for traffic because, you get traffic or engagement because you get a lot of eyeballs for really cheap. But you don't want to build your business on cheap data. So you got to run with the right objectives, things like conversion campaigns, things like DPAs, dynamic product ads. These are all optimized for purchase conversions. And so even if the purchases aren't happening right away, you're still building it on high quality data. And that's going to lay the foundation for you to scale. And then taking that a step further, it's actually going to give you the ability and the data you need to get the amount of touch points, to get someone to know, like, and trust you enough to actually purchase. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of ad creation and setup. And then, as far as some of the things that Matthew, you shared, it's like you got to be open to doing things differently. If it's not working and you just want to continue doing what's not working, like nobody can help you. So just being open and coachable. If you need outside help, go find a good agency. There's lots of good agencies out there. We're one of them, but there's many. But you got to be open to doing the process correctly if you want to scale your e-commerce brand.
Let's bring this full circular too, because we talked about what Matthew's looking for and what Patrick's looking for in the audit a little bit. Patrick, what does it look like then if you see some gaping red holes where we can come in and just crush it for them? What's it look like then? What are you telling people like the next steps are when you're laying out the plan and kind of like getting going with us?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's like starting a little bit different. So there's not like a one size fits all. I mean, after we kind of assess like we try and like weight it on like what's important right now. Cause I think you always got to be kind of aware that it's easy to drown in opportunity, especially if you're like at a smaller level. There's so many different things that you could do. I think that I'm a huge believer in kind of like action producing clarity. And so, yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about like the exact next steps in terms of like setting up the onboarding call and stuff like that, or what exactly are you asking?
Yeah, dude, I was just saying like, hey, just give me an example of someone that you audited their account. They have some stuff mixed up in there. They're trying to get to a certain goal, but they're never going to get there if they don't do these certain things. I was just curious, what are you telling them? What are those things they need to do? Because I know you tell people like, whether you hire us or not, this has to happen. And say, if you hire us, this is how we're going to handle it. And, you could go into the next steps in detail if you want.
Yeah, even just an example.
I mean, honestly, like this isn't exactly, I don't know if this is exactly where you're going, but I mean, most of my calls, like the reality is like Facebook, there's complications. It's not rocket science though. And like a lot of people's issues in there is just like there's structural stuff that has to change, which can be fixed. And that's like really the easy part, laying out an action plan. Or I'm always like very like, I'll give people as much as I can, like as much information as possible, that if they're not quite ready to like go with us right now, they can at least take some stuff and do it. But really though, like that's the easy part. What I typically spend like more time talking about is like people's mindset. Cause like that's the actual part that's like hard. I feel like that's the biggest like thing that's like a hurdle. Matthew was kind of talking about this a second ago with people like being like open. I mean, what that kind of means is like sometimes I feel like after talking with like thousands of business owners, I feel like it's like the biggest indicator that I see that someone's going to kill it and be successful isn't even necessarily like their product or looking at their ad account. Usually it's like someone who understands what they like, their strengths and weaknesses, or what they do and don't know. Because I'll talk to like a lot of people, this like kind of like this whole mindset, like a lot of people have no idea kind of like how basic funnel structure should go, or funnels or Facebook, but they also at the same time have no idea that they have no idea, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So like, I mean, people just like put like all kinds of limiting beliefs. I've heard people come in and like, like they, they've been super frustrated with their business, or this has happened. And like, they have these broad conclusions, either like agencies are, all scam is terrible, Facebook doesn't work, or my product's too expensive to sell on Facebook, or my product's too cheap to sell on Facebook. Or like, I mean, there's so many different things like why they're like, the people kind of come up with all these reasons and framework. And, that's what we do in life. We kind of like build up, like everyone's kind of walking around with like this lens that they make of just like, that is inaccurate, but which is one thing to have that in your personal life. It's another thing with your business. You have to be able to like strip that away and see clearly, because it doesn't matter. Like you can have all the reasons and the excuses and the limiting beliefs in your head. At the end of the day though, that's going to manifest itself in like company success and like how well you do. So I feel like the best people are willing to like sit down and like be like, when Matthew's saying like be open to like a process and change, it's like being like open to like kind of be vulnerable for a second, pull that back and just like look at it clearly. I think that's one of the things, like the things that we do best as a team, regardless of like running the ad account. Like, and I don't mean to sell ourselves short. Like we're really good at that aspect, but like anyone can run the ad account, like it's really, it's more than just that. I think, and I think when you look at a business and you just openly like kind of like give yourself permission to like really dive into like what your bottlenecks are specifically. I mean, we talk to people all the time where like their bottleneck might not even be their ad account. Like they didn't even know, but like they had an agency in there that like there was actually ads that were performing really well and they had no idea, and they're just sitting around on a low budget, but their bottleneck is like inventory management, or their bottleneck. And there's so many different things. I think that that's kind of like what we're there to do, is like uncover that. And then that kind of like dictates our next steps in terms of like moving forward and onboarding. But I feel like I don't know, it's like an unspoken thing with our business, because everything we talk about is based on ad accounts. But I feel like we offer so many services that go kind of beyond that. And I think that's like a big part of why we've had like such a huge success ratio with clients.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's a little bit of a rant.
No, that's perfect.
That was good, dude. Yeah.
Because it's such an important piece.
It is. And it's a piece that keeps going once the client's on board, because we're always coaching them on other parts of their business, but as well as like coaching them on their mindset of like, hey, we need to scale budget right now because of these reasons. So I feel like once they're in, it's kind of that ongoing push. They need to continue scaling their brand.
Yeah, totally. Budget's like a great example, because you have like some people, how this plays in with mindset. If someone is like negative towards the like they don't think it's going to work, and they're like skeptical, and like, but they're willing to kind of still get into the relationship. And you talk about like raising budget. We're talking about raising budget because like, I've heard this example many times of like Facebook ads are very similar to buying sales. So once you validate a funnel, it's kind of like standing in front of a vending machine. And if you're putting $1 in and you're getting $5 out, it's kind of like, how many times you want to do that? Like the obvious answer is like as many times as possible. Like you'd be a fool if you didn't do that. But where mindset comes into play is like, we'll have like people can kind of come in and like, if you have this negative mindset on it and you think it's not gonna work, it's like even just like scaling your ad spend, I've seen like a lot of resistance to that. Like why, like in someone's mind, it's like, oh, the agency's asking for more money. It's like, no, we're not. We're trying to give you more money. You know, like there's so many things that like, I mean, that's just like one little area, but it's like people bite themselves in the foot. Like it's right there. I'm like, man, I know that if this was like my business and I was like, had your ad account, like I could scale this so quickly, but like people will just be very, very hesitant. And a lot of that I feel like boils down to like kind of like this like fear of the unknown. Which is like a whole nother thing, which is why I think we're all across the board on our company, I think really big fans and believers in our clients understanding what we're doing and understanding the process and like what we're trying to achieve, not just like looking at like one number at the end of the day, oh, ROAS, you know?
Cool. Very cool. Matthew, thanks for joining us. You may have hopped off already. He got to go grab a little one. No, we sprung this on you guys, but so appreciate your willingness to just jump in and be game to get put on the spot like this. I feel like it brings a lot of clarity to someone who's, you know, just in this crazy e-commerce world looking to grow business. You know, the more lessons we can share, the more learning lessons we can share from experience, the less they have to go through by themselves. So thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah, totally. Thanks.